Michigan, but the other game last night that really had a lot of people talking was the one that kind of brought things to a close, and that was, Purdue and Penn State out of the Big Ten. Sean Clifford, in the midst of being like the guy who everybody's complaining about, if things go south completely for James Franklin and company, leads a huge drive at the end of the game. I do think Gus Johnson, a little heavy on the hyperbole. That's like one of the greatest drives I've ever seen. It's like, dude, come on now. I mean, I know it's week 1 and everybody's excited that football's back. It was a really impressive drive, but one of the greatest that you've ever seen. I know that's not the case for me, and I feel like Gus Johnson's probably watched more football than I have at this point. Maybe not. But it was impressive nonetheless. Sean Clifford leads the Nittany Lions on a big drive, and they're able to get the win. And it was not easy by any means. It looked like we were going to have some big time talking points for the Big Ten just right out of the gates. And I think we still do. Like Aiden O'Connell and the Boilermakers, obviously a huge missed opportunity for them. You can talk about what they should or should not have done, play calling, things like that. But it was really there in their grasp, and credit to Penn State. I think Penn State is the better team. I think that, ultimately the better team did win, in my opinion. I don't know how good Penn State really is overall, but you got a wily veteran quarterback there in Sean Clifford, and that's why you have to love having guys like that. And so instead of just a really disappointing beginning of the season, Nittany Lions get an ecstatic win, 35-31. So that was another result. That was a fun game to watch there towards the end last night.
Yeah, so, here's what we learned about both these teams. Neither one can run the football still.
Oh, yeah.
Neither team can run the ball, and I just don't know if that works in the Big Ten. We'll see. We'll see if that works. I think it actually favors Purdue because at least Purdue can throw for, 400 yards in a game. Penn State, on the other hand, their defense is supposed to be really good, really great. Their secondary is supposed to be amazing. I know they got Joey Porter Jr., who's fantastic, but at times it felt like they were getting torn up a little bit by Aiden O'Connell. But on the flip side, because Purdue was throwing the ball so much, they went away from running the football, especially late in the game. And so I guess just kind of going through it really quick, it was 14-10 with barely any time left in the first half, and Purdue gives up a 67-yard touchdown with brutal. 2 seconds left.
That's brutal.
To make it 21-10. So you go into half, and it's like, man, this game's over. This game, there's no way that Purdue's going to get themselves off the mat. They come out and play really well to start the second half. Sean Clifford has the left knee injury, and you're sitting there going, man, if he doesn't come back in the game, Purdue's got a real shot here. And Purdue took the lead, and then Clifford came back in, led them on a drive. Scored
a drive, basically, yeah.
Well, they scored to take the lead back, and then they got the ball, and then Clifford threw the pick six, which was kind of weird that both games had a pick six nearly at the same time, which was fantastic and very entertaining.
It was a puke six, as it became known.
Absolutely, and so
that's college football, man. Night 1 and puke 6 is trending. That's college football in a nutshell, right there.
No kidding. So I would say that if you kind of look at the end of this game, Purdue has an opportunity to run the clock out twice, and they're unable to do it. They're unable to do it. They're unable to run the football and take off any time. So on their last 2 drives, they held the ball for only 3 minutes and 43 seconds, despite converting a third down on each of those drives because they couldn't run the football. They kept airing it out, running 5 wide or running 4 wide, making tight window throws.
Your buddy King Daroo.
King
Texas, King Daroo with a couple touchdowns, but he's a Texas guy. Baylor recruited him a few years back, and Grayson was very high on him, I remember. But I saw King Daroo. I was like, King Daroo's still around? But but you're right, though. They really had no run game to speak of.
And they didn't run it. Yeah, they just went away from it. And that really favored Penn State. And, I will say this about kind of both teams, really. Sean Clifford showed a lot of heart.
Oh, yeah.
He showed a ton of heart. That was really, honestly, fantastic to see for an older guy when you're listening to the broadcast saying, oh, Penn State fans are rooting for Drew Aller to
they were.
be the guy. I know.
According to Twitter, they were definitely rooting for him. They want him to be the starting quarterback as of last night. But you know what? It reminded me of Charlie Brewer.
A little bit.
In that, the guy's been around so long that you're like kind of tired of him at this point. You feel like you're sort of maxed out what that person can do. It's like you like them. You think they're a good player, but you've seen everything at this point. And what comes with the experience is games where it's like, just, what are you doing? Yeah. Do something. Like poke them with a stick, like do something. And then they'll just totally redeemed themselves, and that was last night. And that was what happened with Sean Clifford and Penn State.
Yeah, but on the flip side, they only had 98 yards rushing. And
he did not have a lot of help. You're right.
Yeah, and he had 4 touchdowns. I mean, it wasn't like he was dreadful.
I'm quoting Twitter, bud.
Yeah, I know.
We're not dealing with all reality when those comments are being made.
It's just brutal. It is brutal. On the flip side for Purdue, though, Aiden O'Connell, and we weren't sure kind of what their passing attack would look like, and they got an epic performance from Charlie Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, 12 for 153 and a touchdown. He was fun to watch. I think Purdue's problem was they kept targeting Joey Porter, the cornerback for Penn State. They kept throwing the ball at him, and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, the broadcast was sounding they were pull their hair out because they were asking the same question of, like, why are you continuously going after him?
Right.
It just made no sense whatsoever.
I mean, look at this stat right here. So PFF College, Joey Porter forced 6 incompletions last night. That's tied for the most since PFF began recording in 2014. That is insane. And if you watch the game, it was literally Purdue was literally taking the snap and throwing it at him just consistently. It was so bizarre.
Yeah, it was a fun game. It was a great redemption, air quotes for Sean Clifford there at the end. But yeah, big win for the Nittany Lions, 35-31 over Purdue. So get a first win and a conference win right out of the gates, and that's just a devastating loss for the Boilermakers. I mean, that's one that you had right there in your grasp. You had an opportunity that it opened up for you, and you just It's weird what happens, right, when like pressure gets applied and in certain situations, it just seems like the obvious sitting at home on your couch or in your computer chair or whatever, and then the guy on the sidelines just not doing the thing that's really obvious, and you don't understand why, and you're screaming at the screen like, come on. But that kind of felt like one of those moments last night or stretches last night. You're like, what are you doing, Purdue? Come on. And, they just weren't listening. Clarkley wasn't listening. But nice win for Penn State. 35-31, as I mentioned. So those were a couple of like the main events last night. There was obviously Oklahoma State